for those of you who don't know me, I think you at least know my name is Michaela. I would hope that much if you're signed up. And I am, of course, the founder or creator of the nonlinear movement method. And nonlinear movement is something that's incredibly dear to my heart and kind of very precious to my own practice and development, because it came originally from a practice that my original first teacher has given me. And that was a kind of inner channel, central channel practice. And it's a super, super subtle breath practice. And as I was doing that practice, I realized that if I would move my body in a very subtle ways around the central channel, all kinds of things could happen that were quite interesting. And that was the beginning of nonlinear movement method as it stands now. That was when I was about 17. And then I had quite a few years where while I studied psychology and I received some very in-depth training in trauma therapy, where I used that as a means of kind of de-escalating myself. There were also some interesting explorations around death and some of my closest friends dying and me having to really work with death, which was very tough on me. So I essentially had to learn how to self-regulate, and I did it via nonlinear. Then, of course, when I did trauma therapy training and when I really looked into what was happening in the body when trauma gets stuck or released, I got all the underpinnings that you're now enjoying about, breaking up held trauma and emotion into flow, why that is, how it is. And so I've been adding to it for quite a few years. And then in the early 2000s, I ran and consulted and saw clients at a drug rehab, and that drug rehab was a dual diagnosis drug rehab with people really also sexually or ritually and really heavy duty stuff, lots of personality disorders and heavy addictions. And that's when I started formally working with nonlinear, not only in myself, because I really needed to completely de-escalate my body every night, but I started working with it in sessions and eventually in group programs. And then from there, as I started traveling more and more and teaching more and more, it's become a staple in our teaching, both in the more embodiment teaching aspects and the relational aspects. Because of course, when your relationship is informed by trauma, which almost all relationships are, either early childhood trauma or relational programming and trauma, the freezing of the body and the fight and flight and freeze responses make it that the communication can't actually progress. And so for that, and as part of that exploration, we do a lot of nonlinear. So nonlinear is a collection of different applications. And what we're going to do today is called moving what you're feeling, which I think is incredibly apropos for the times we're in right now. So moving what you're feeling is a sensitizing practice that connects us back to the entirety of our internal landscape. And it's the most foundational of the nonlinear practices. There's a total of 10, 5 of which are taught. There's quite a few certified nonlinear teachers out there in the world, all over the world, actually, in Brazil, in Australia, in Europe, in the UK, in the US, Canada, Mexico, you name it. And so there's 5 that are being taught ongoingly, and then the other 5 are the 5 that I teach in my workshops and in my private work. Amongst them are things like working with creativity, working with epigenetics and generational trauma, some more shamanic practices. There's also paired practices. So there's a lot in nonlinear, but we'll start with moving what you're feeling, which is a very, very profound practice because it connects you back to what you're feeling in the present moment. And that has a few really, really interesting effects. And the effects that it's having is essentially giving you present moment information about what's happening inside. And then also the ability to move through things and not stay stuck. Moving what you're feeling is one of the practices we do for proper boundary setting. And it's very, very important for proper boundary setting because only when you can feel what's happening within you in the moment can you actually make a stop to something. If you're, 6 or 7 minutes later, half an hour later, an hour late, you've left the meeting already, and then you realize you weren't okay, it's too late. So sensitizing to present moment experience is what allows us to set boundaries. It's also what allows us to have more pleasure, more aliveness in the body, and to be honest and truthful with what we're feeling so we can actually be with it. So that's what we're going to do today, moving what you're feeling. And I'm super excited about it because one of the things that's turned out oddly in this whole isolation pandemic situation is that a lot of people who have done classes with me, this by the way is my Ojai teaching studio, so it's almost like you're with me in my own room. I wouldn't be able to fit 106 people in here, I can tell you this, so it's quite lovely. But when we do it together, a kind of a group genius builds. But when you do it at home, it actually allows you to have home practice in a much more effective way because the body actually responds very strongly to the location in which you practice regularly. And so you get to practice in your own space, which will form the foundation for ongoing practice. Because of course you can do this in 5-minute increments, 2-minute increments. You can do longer sessions. I'll probably will offer regular sessions with all the different modalities, at least through the summer while people are still quite cooped up everywhere. But it allows you to really sink in by yourself and create that kind of space for your own practice in your own home. So there's an actual benefit to Zoom, and then there's a completely different benefit for doing it at home. So that's my little intro on nonlinear. And of course, in the context of what we're teaching these days, it's one aspect that supports other somatic explorations and practices, but it's totally, applicable in your own life every day without anything else around it. And when we're done, I'll open up the call for some questions. If you want any refinement on anything or you need any explanation, and I'll give you a little bit more resources on it as well. So that said, nonlinear is best done on hands and knees. And so we asked you in your email to have a mat or sheepskin or something where you can comfortably be on your hands and knees. I'm going to actually demonstrate in a second, but I'm just going to tell you what you need to know first. So it's done on hands and knees, and the reason it's done on hands and knees traditionally is that that's an extremely grounding position, but still allows you to move all the areas where things get stuck, the front surface of the body, where the organs are, the throat, the neck, the shoulders, the spine, hips, pelvic floor, all can move fluidly on hands and knees. But of course, some people have, issues with the shoulders and hands, and I'm going to give you a few variations. You can go on your forearms, you can be kneeling, which is what I mostly do or often do. You can be on your back if you have some injuries, that's perfectly fine, just won't have as much range of motion. I'd invite you not to stand up until you're a seasoned nonlinear pro, because the act of standing up moves the energy up, and then you'll often see in people, they start getting very up in the head, and you know, the hands start moving, and we want to be down because it's a grounding and releasing practice for what we're doing. But there's, you know, you can do it on your side. Some people do it seated in a chair because they're injured. So we've had all variations done, and that's perfectly fine. So I'm actually going to demonstrate to you what it looks like. This is how we start. And as we start like this, you would drop your head to begin with. So just that your neck relaxes. I'm keeping my head up so you can actually hear me, because I'm screaming at the computer from a little bit further away. But so all you're going to do is you're going to begin feeling whatever there's to be felt in the body. We start with the body. And so my lower back feels some pretty strong sensations. So I'm just moving as the feeling in my lower back. I'm not trying to make it go away or do something with it. I'm just moving it. And as I do that, it kind of connects to my neck. And I'm just moving my neck. And now that brings on some kind of emotions, like in the chest and the heart. This kind of really wonderful, in my case right now, feeling of kind of just joy. And so I'm just moving with that feeling. And like I said, I often do it like this because I really like articulating my hips and not having too much strain on my neck. So this is one option as well, of course. So that's all there is to nonlinear movement. There's no right or wrong ways for you to move, as long as you just simply move with what you're feeling. There is, however, 2 rules to nonlinear, and they are super important, because these are the 2 rules that make it a trauma release and not just a dance or a wiggle. So there's many, many layers to it in the instruction, everything else. But the 2 things you need to know is close your eyes and keep your eyes closed as much as you can. I sometimes, when I have a very heady day, put a little blindfold on so that I can't cheat myself out of the closed eyes situation. The reason we close the eyes is so that you feel inward versus refer to something outward. And often you'll see when people think a lot, they, you know, their eyes pop open again and again. It's fine if it does, just close your eyes again. So closing your eyes, super important. And the other thing is keep one part of your body moving. That's the important piece for breaking up trauma into flow. So even if you have a moment where it's just feeling very stuck, go like this, or you know, move your tongue and your mouth around, or wiggle your back. It doesn't matter what you do, but keep one part of your body moving so that the body can unfold its natural genius. We rely very heavily on the body to know more than we know consciously, and it does. It's kept us alive and sane and healthy for much, much longer than we had a strong developed brain. And one of the things that's very important to know about this practice is that we're working with both aspects of the nervous system. So we're working both with sympathetic and parasympathetic to create homeostasis. And for homeostasis to occur, both systems have to be worked. So it's not about just flopping and relaxing, and it's not just about go, go, go. It's the dynamic play between those, and your body knows how to do that. So if you just keep one part of your body moving, doesn't matter. The fun thing about moving what you're feeling is that you can move as a sensation in the body. You can move as an emotion. So if you feel numb, move as numbness. And that's not necessarily musical theater, right? It's just, you're not expressive dancing, it's just moving as the feeling. Or you can even move as a thought. So if you have some thought loop, just move as that thought loop. And then that allows the body to take care of it. So those are the rules of nonlinear. Keep your eyes closed, keep one part of your body moving, be on your hands and knees, at least to begin with. And of course, if we are in a room together, I would say that don't look at other people. It's a bit harder to do on Zoom with your eyes closed. But I'm going to give you an option. And the option I'm going to give you is that you might want to be somewhat off camera, so that you don't feel watched by the camera. That sometimes psychically has a better effect. So I don't need to see you. As a matter of fact, I'm gonna turn my camera off so I have the best possible Wi-Fi for the music. And I'm not staring at you or looking at you. It's your solo exploration. So you could turn your camera off, or you can move to the side. That's completely up to you. It's just at the end, it would be good if you come back up so that I can actually see you and see that, you were there. But what you do while we do the actual practice is totally up to you. And because it's a practice that works with the nervous system, I'd invite you to put yourself in a position vis-a-vis the camera, or turn the camera off, so you feel really that you can jump in and practice really fully without wondering what I'm thinking or somebody else is thinking. So that's it. So as that goes, if you have any questions, like, or somebody's saying breathing pattern, don't engage your breath consciously. And the reason that's very important is that we rely on the body to breathe how your body needs to breathe. If you have contraction in the breath, that's just what has to happen. If your body breathes faster, that's just what has to happen. So unlike yoga or other modalities, don't mess with your breath at all. Just let your body do it.